Hi, I'm Michelle Sterling for Friends of Science Society. It's amazing how many things you don't see when they're lying there right in plain sight, right? Like for instance, when Premier Kenney was elected, one of the first things he did was to cancel the government 30% renewable energy program. But according to a recent report in the Narwhal, that program continues apace without government support. Now, we've recently found that arable land in Alberta is being offered 30-year contracts for millions of dollars to put solar or wind farms on that land. And we don't know if there's any legislation in place to protect that important arable farmland where food crops are grown from this kind of predation by wind and solar developers. Now, why would wind and solar developers still be flocking to Alberta if there is no program of government support for them? Well, there is a program of government support for them from the federal government. There is a program where they earn money for every megawatt of power that is produced. That's money from you, the taxpayer. There are other kinds of intricate corporate dealings associated with the renewables industry, like flow-through shares, the trading of carbon credits, and the actual production of energy is really the least important thing associated with renewable energy. The most important thing is the production of carbon credits and all the tax credits. So, you know, there's now, in the most recent budget, they passed legislation. There's now a 30% tax credit on all renewables. And if you're in favor of renewables, that sounds like probably a good thing to you. But that means that that money is not going into the tax pool. So somebody's getting a benefit for putting up a wind farm. And what happens when you put up a wind farm? Well, you need to build a transmission line. Actually, you, the wind developer, will never pay for that. It's built by a separate company, and it's taxpayers who pay for that. And those costs are really, really exorbitant, especially considering the very nominal amount of energy that you get from wind or solar farms. For instance, the line from Calgary to Pincher Creek costs $2.2 billion at a time when we were only getting 4% of our energy from wind in Alberta. So that was very expensive. If you think the Shepard combined cycle natural gas plant cost $1.4 billion. And it works round the clock. When you put up a wind farm, it only works when the wind blows. And a solar farm only works when there's sun and no cloud. So if you trace back the ownership of some of these projects, you'll find that they're owned by German and even Russian companies. If you look at who benefits in terms of job creation, you'll find that it's China and certain companies in Europe. Not Canadians, not Canada, not Albertans. So there's a bill that's just been passed in the House of Commons, and probably as we speak it's going through third reading in the Senate. And this is Bill C-235. And this is a bill to implement a green economy on the prairies. So this is central Canada passing a bill to force the prairies to become all green. And in the plan noted on the CER, the government website, you'll see that they actually want to impose 10 times the present wind production on Alberta. That would mean a proliferation of 10 times the wind farms there presently are in Alberta. That would totally destroy beautiful Alberta's landscapes, and it would cost us all a bundle. One of our consulting power engineers some years ago told us that it costs about $1 million a megawatt to integrate wind into the grid in Alberta. And it also turns out that because the wind is so volatile in Alberta, that if you install backup plants which are not combined cycle plants, you probably get more CO2 emissions than you would if you just use coal. So, there are many, many problems with these things that are happening in plain sight, but no one's really looking at them. And they're going to devastate Alberta's economy and our landscape and our arable agricultural land. So please have a look at our reports. We have one called Broken Promises, where Robert Lyman outlines the many subsidies and deals that wind and solar get that no other industry gets. We've got one called What You Really Need to Know About Renewables that the Pembina Institute won't tell you. We've got another one called The True Cost of Wind and Solar for Alberta. Another one called Solar Realities, which is a short blog piece about the cost of solar and batteries, because that's what everybody thinks is going to be the next big and easy thing to do. Well, it's astronomically expensive and not very reliable. And ultimately, we have another report by Robert Lyman called The Pursuit of the Impossible, which shows there is not enough material supply in the world to get to net zero using wind and solar and electric vehicles. So they're actually proposing something that will take us to a dead end in more ways than one. These are really serious issues. The mainstream media isn't raising any of them, and I think that it's time that we called for a moratorium on wind and solar in Alberta, especially in Alberta, because this is all part of the tar sands campaign to try and get people off fossil fuels, which are reliable, affordable, and plentiful here, and onto renewables, which are expensive, unreliable, and which actually are parasitic both on the grid and on your pocketbook. So think about that, read our reports, and make these issues known to people who should know about them. For Friends of Science Society, I'm Michelle Sterling.